You are listening to the After the Timeout podcast, hosted by Todd Zazadil and Jon Pulicki, two high school coaches looking to help others spread their passion for the coaching profession. Tune in for more episodes for anything coaching related in-game, outside of the game, and anything in between. All right, on today's episode, brought to you by VREP's Virtual Playbook, we are joined by Kyle Diemer, basketball coach at Queen Creek High School and founder of 94 Feet Hoopz. Coach, how you doing today? Thank you for joining us.
Doing great. Thank you for having me. Very honored to be on. You've had a lot smarter people than me be on this show, so I appreciate you guys thinking about me.
Well, the only people that aren't smart on the show are the hosts, but we'll go from there. So
right, I was going to say everybody else has been smarter than us, so you're ahead of us for sure.
We like to just start a segment just with our guests, just to kind of loosen things up, get it going. So, we wanted to start with, 94 Feet Hoopz and, kind of just take our listeners through, why did you start it? How did you go about starting it, and kind of what are your goals of it?
Sure. So, like most of us, with COVID and all that stuff, like I was really just missing the game, and it opened up another opportunity for a lot of coaches to kind of share with one another. So I was just sitting around. I'm like, well, nothing else to do, I guess. So I just wanted to just share content and connect with other coaches and that kind of stuff. So that's just kind of where it all kind of stemmed from, was wanting to just share the game with other people. And then I actually had the time to kind of take the time to actually set up and make a brand and kind of do all that stuff. So since I had the time to do it, I thought that was the perfect time to try it. It's been fun. I haven't had the amount of time I want to put into it as always, because we all work multiple jobs and coaching, that kind of stuff. But, I get the chance to kind of share with other guys. I really enjoy it.
All right. So that leads us perfectly into the next question. Obviously, and I think I'm into this now, and we talked a while back, and then we got during COVID, I think we started chatting because you saw something I had put out in the chat or something. But you're the content creator for Luceo. That's what you do. You do a lot of your presentations on that. So just tell us about what it is, what it does, and how can it help coaches, and what you're doing with it.
Sure. So in my opinion, Luceo is an absolute game changer. For me personally, it's helped simplified everything they do when it comes to coaching my players. So not only does it give them access to things like I can go make a quick video on how to breaking down the concept on our offense, then our guys go watch it, and I have video in there, I have animations, and I have illustrating on top of both the video and animations. I got the voiceover on there, and it requires zero effort on my end, and just literally hit record. So in that aspect, I've really seen, especially this year, because I'm at a new school now at Queen Creek, and the jump in our players' IQ from this summer to now has been like tenfold. It's the biggest jump I've seen out of any other program I've ever been a part of. And I'm a big believer is Luceo. They're constantly getting content pushed to them from the coaching staff, and so their knowledge and learning is just grown tremendously. We'll go watch film as a team. It's amazing. Like you could tell they know what the heck they're talking about now. Like the first time you watched film, it was just like I don't really know. But now when we're going there, like, oh yeah, they made this wrong read, or we should have screened here, we should have done this. And it's just awesome to see the IQ side of them grow. I think it's a tremendous teaching tool for our players to help them grow. And then, in huddles and in the game, I haven't used a whiteboard in 2.5 years. So for me, I have all my stuff loaded, like, how you give your game card, but my Luceo app matches my game cards. Whenever I want to run something, it's all pre-animated and all the other great stuff. So when we go into a timeout, my kids get to see the play cleanly, 2 to 3, 4 times in a timeout. I got their names in there, and it's so much easier for them to follow. We'll purposely follow, if we're messing around, we put some just more complex ATOs in, just see what happens. And they were able to go out there and actually execute pretty darn well, considering they've never been put in those sets before. So it's been tremendous for me to just help simplify my coaching, grow the learning of my players. And this is our staff too. It's just been tremendous to kind of help us as a program just really take that next step, because how it is, like high school coaches, we have no resources, no nothing. So it's really hard to get our guys, learning constantly all the time. So this really helped us do that.
Well, and Coach, I'm going to follow up for a second, but I think it's also just for me using a little bit, it's good to help some of our learners that are more visual as well, right? It used to be just we put on a play and it doesn't move. And so I want to talk about how you use it in your scouting reports. Are you just coming through and putting your clips in and then diagramming it? Or are you splicing it into your scouting reports? How are you using that to prepare for whatever team you're playing for?
Yep. So I'll cut it all up for each team, and then I'll cut the film, the animation look at, the video look at, and then I do individual stuff too. So I'll just put individual player edits in there, along to go with their playbook or certain things I want them to focus on. But again, what's nice is it's all on their phone. Like they're on their phones anyway. So the biggest thing for me was no longer ending up on the bottom of the bus, their backpack, the other team's locker room, because it's on their phone. So that was the biggest thing for me, is like I felt better. Maybe they don't look at it, but at least I felt better. I'm not finding it on the floor. You know what I mean? So that was a big thing, just having it on their phones at all times. And like I said, everybody's visual, so they can go watch their matchup or who they want to go watch for a couple minutes. I just think it created a little higher engagement as well.
Well, because we all know there's always the one that ends up on the floor or left on the bench. You're in the locker room. There's always one when you give out a scouting report.
Absolutely. I'll give you a funny story. So we were on the road, and I gave out our scouting reports on the bus, and I was going to bring up a sophomore, give him some minutes on the varsity, been working hard. And so we're sitting there watching the JV game. All of a sudden, this paper airplane comes flying down, hits me in the back of the head. Can you guess what was on the paper airplane? Was our scout report? I'm like, well, all right, well, I'll take the jersey back. You're not playing tonight, but just funny, like, you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff because, it's just not out there. It's just on their phones.
I mean, was it a good paper airplane at least?
It was a great paper airplane. As a matter of fact, at the banquet, we bought him a paper airplane book on how to make all the different types of paper airplanes inside it.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
That's hilarious. That's my favorite part of the story. So let's kind of get into the FiveOut offense. I'm a big FiveOut offense guy myself. I have been for a few years. I kind of started with the old Paredes stuff from the Villanova women's side and kind of built off it. For you, why is this the best or most optimal offensive setup? And kind of what are 2 to 3 main points of focus to be successful in the FiveOut offense? Let's start with those.
Sure. Well, the beautiful thing about basketball is there's more than one way to play the game. So obviously I'm very passionate about this way. Doesn't mean it's the only right way, but I just love the opportunities it allows us to create within our offense, with the paint constantly being available and open. It gives our guys an opportunity to really be aggressive. It allows our guys to really just put pressure on the rim, whether it's through cutting or attacking with the dribble or what have you. I just feel it just gives us more flexibility and adaptability with, one, our personnel, but 2, just allowing us to flow a little freer within our offense. And I'd say a couple big things, at least we harp on. One is, spacing is absolutely the most important thing. 2, we talk about having, deep paint touches. So we'll track how many paint touches we hit in a quarter. But we want like deep paint touches, actually getting past, 1 foot past the free throw. Like we want to really get in there deep. It's going to cause the defense to collapse. We get a domino to fall. We play out of that. And I'd say the third most important thing, at least for a coach, is just to know exactly your philosophy on every single action that you might run. So for example is, what are our reads when we come off a pin down screen? Because you might come off a single, you might come off a double, you might come off a flex. It doesn't matter. Like however you come off that screen, the reads need to be the same. The same reason, and then same thing with how you handle DHOs and pick and rolls and those sort of things. So then once you have that foundation set and what you believe in, it's very easy to run offense because it doesn't matter what HCO you drop. It doesn't matter what formation or what action we're running. We know the reads we're going to make out of it regardless of what action we're in.
All right, so go ahead, John.
I was just going to say the other follow-up I wanted to hit on before Todd follows up on the paint touch piece of it is I wanted to get into for you, because as you said, there is more than one way to do everything. So my follow-up to you, and I like when people ask me this because I'm just as passionate about FiveOut offense as you is, what's the flaws of it, Coach?
The flaws of it? I would say trying to put too much structure and rules into it. I would say that'd be the flaws of it. We're instead teaching more concept based and allowing more structured freedom for your players. So when you're really trying to, like, if you run the swing offense or you run the flex, you can do the same thing every single time, right? And I think when you try and put that into the 5-out, it just takes away all the flow. So we are big believers in more teaching concepts and reads and counters out of everything that we run. So it's just flowing. If I'm supposed to go set a screen on somebody and they take that option away, like, fine, I'm going to go cut through this way. We're able to kind of play off of each other. We're just playing more basketball versus I having to think, okay, well, I'm supposed to set the flex screen and I couldn't set it. So now what do we do? It's more of just creating concepts so our guys can understand the flow of the game, and just more of just worrying about playing basketball, making reads, than trying to follow a specific system.
So I wanted to get back to the paint touches. I saw, I don't remember where it was, just scrolling through Twitter the other day, somebody statted their shooting percentages. I think it was from threes for paint touches. I don't know. I just wondering if you've done anything like that. If you found that when you get a paint touch, X shooting percentage goes up, or, you know, the offense scores more points per game, anything like that?
So when we get there's two stats. When we get a deep paint touch three, right, single kick out, we shoot anywhere between 43 to 47% from three. If we get we get a piece of the paint and then get in one more, that number is very close also. It's more like 42 to 45% from three. So whether it's a one more or we're getting super deep and just wide open kick, you know, our shooting from three is over 43 plus, which for us is tremendous. I think we'd all be happy for shooting that percentage from three. And then if we're not hitting the paint, you know, our shooting percentage from three is a lot lower.
All right, so let's go into personnel now and like install a 5-out. Let's start with the personnel. If you got your ideal personnel out there, what is it?
So because that's another thing too, is there's different ways to run 5-out depending on the personnel that you have. But for me personally, I would love to have a great decision maker and skilled big at the 5 spot for me, someone who can make good decisions, put them in DHO situations, 2-man situations. There's a great decision maker, almost thinking like Sabonis with Indiana last year. That'd be like my ideal 5. And then you'd obviously have some shooters to space out. You have a great downhill guy and you have a great pick and roll guy. So in a perfect world, you'd have a CP3 up the top of pick and roll. You'd have dead eye shooters in the corners. You have a nice slasher like almost, I guess, like a Giannis or Jimmy Butler, or somebody like that who really put a lot of pressure on the rim, athletic, get to the rim. Then you have a really good decision-making, skilled big.
Okay, so you just talked about some of the skills. So then let's go into like our drills and how we're connecting them to the offense. So you kind of have those things. So what drills do you think are most important? Progressions, whatever it may be, to connect those concepts and what you're doing to the skill sets of your players?
So we do a lot of small-sided games. We do a lot of 3-on-3. We'll do some 3-on-0 stuff early, like for warm-ups. So if we're warming up, we'll do a 3-on-0 and just say we're in our delay action. So we'll just say we're delay down, and they'll go down, run 3-on-0, delay down, but everybody gets a shot. Then we'll go delay up, delay under, all the different reads. Just kind of getting guys up and down the floor, loose, getting shots, going through a read, going through our progressions. And again, it just kind of helps build some memories, helps teach a little bit of what we're doing while guys are getting shots. And then we start putting it into more 3-on-3, 4-on-4 situations. We do a lot of live stuff. I think, again, because we're teaching concepts, the more reps they get at decision-making is a better outcome for us versus just we're going to work on a skill 1-on-0 or 2-on-0, whatever. To me, that doesn't benefit as much as us putting them in a 2-on-2, 3-on-3 situation where it might be a little sloppier, but it's game-like. Like the defense is going to handle DHO differently every time down the floor. So we can't sit there and just script out what we're doing every single practice. So we do a lot of 3-on-3, 4-on-4. We'll dictate, what kind of action we'll be starting in, or we'll put someone at an advantage and dictate things that way. But I just do think it's so important to really work on live situation stuff as much as possible. Without going full 5-on-5, you can break it down 3-on-3. Because a lot of stuff that we run is 3-man or 2-man actions anyway, and the other 2 guys are spacing the floor. So it allows us to work on smaller stuff within drills.
All right, so now you got those concepts in. All right, let's go transition. Mm-hmm. All right. I mean, and I guess obviously it's going to depend on personnel, but what do you think ideally is best and works the best? True 5-out break or having a rim runner moving to 5-out? What is your preference, and what are kind of the advantages and disadvantages of both?
Sure. So I'm very anti rim run. Every guy who says they are a rim runner guy, I just say, tell me how many points you score a game from it. So in fact, yesterday I was watching the JUCO Jamboree out here in Arizona. I mean, lots of great teams. I mean, they got, the Division I players, all that great stuff. And I'm watching them play, and I watched 2.5 games yesterday, and there was 6 points scored in 2.5 games off a rim run. So for me, I'm like, well, why am I pushing my poor big to freaking sprint his butt down the floor, the poor big guy, for 6 points a game if we're lucky? So I'd rather just let him, find more of a flow and save some energy to go hit somebody, whether it's a drag screen, go set a quick screen, we get into pistol action. So that's just my philosophy, is that we don't run a big to the rim, because it's not worth the energy expended versus the amount of points we get out of it. It doesn't seem worth it to me. So what we do, we just have different reads depending on where the ball goes or where our big is. So if our big is behind the ball, automatically we're going to be setting a drag screen. Like, it's just automatic, no ifs, ands, or buts, we set a drag. If our big gets ahead of the ball, we have some choices. He can go set a quick screen. We can go set, what I call away. We'll set, double drag away, or a double screen away, I mean. And then we're just kind of making reads. So maybe our point guard's coming down the floor, and we've been hitting them a lot of drag, so they're starting to pick up at the 3-point line now instead of picking us up early. Fine, we'll just hit it to our big early. We'll go into delay stuff. So it's more of just allowing our guys the freedom to make different reads depending on where the ball is, where the defense is, and it's less scripted. It's more of giving them, again, that we're teaching concepts and giving them freedom, structure of choice.
Coach, just as a follow-up before I move on, do you ever have your big, this is something I did all summer long, and I'm going to continue to experiment with, about your big taking the ball out of bounds?
Yes, we do. We never take our ball out of bounds. Yeah, we like it. For us, we're very versatile in the sense that, we're just not very big. We have 1'6'7" kid. Everybody else is the same size. So if he's not in, just whoever takes that ball out just becomes our 5-man.
Yeah, that was somewhat of my thought, because I was tired of playing with the 4-out, 5-out. What am I doing on my fast break? And I'm just gonna have the big take the ball out. Make it simple.
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
So in talking about all of that offensively, all three of us, we've all taken over a program at some point. So when a coach takes over a program, I always find this to be an age-old question. Should that coach come in and have the system fit the kids, or to a point have the kids fit the system?
So personally, now that I'm a big 5-out guy, I think it's a combination of both. So again, you look at Denver, the Nuggets, the Indiana Pacers, or the Toronto Raptors, and let's say the Miami Heat. They all run 5-out completely different. They all run 5-out. They adapt the system to their personnel, but they're still running 5-out. So I'm kind of the same way. I would evaluate what types of players that I have, who would fit great in what roles, and then adjust my system, even though we're still going to be 5-out, but maybe we're running different actions. We might do different things with our 5-man. So it's kind of a sweet spot of adjusting to both. Now, if I took over a program where we had, 3, 6, 10 kids who can't move, well, I probably wouldn't be. I might make a small adjustment there, obviously, but I've never been that lucky. So I'd just say it's a nice fine tuning between adjusting the personnel to the system. But I think it's an easy system where you can apply any personnel to.
Well, and I'm kind of glad you say that, because I think every time we have a guest on, or the majority of the time you have a guest on, everybody says, well, yes, we're gonna form it to the kids. We're gonna form it to the kids. We're gonna form it to the kids. But then I also think, to a point, as the coach, you kind of lose yourself a little bit. Like, you then start teaching things you may not be as knowledgeable in, you may not be as comfortable in. So let me just follow up with this idea is, that might be true your first year. You might have to morph it to the kids that you have. But if you're a place 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, and you're still saying, I'm morphing it to the kids, does your skill development then actually match what you really want? If the players aren't developing the skills to match somewhat of what you want, what does that kind of say about your skill development?
Right. I think that's a great point. It's hard. I've done it, right? I was 24 and took over a high school, and year one, here's what we're running, regardless of my personnel. A young guy really wasn't very experienced. And then the next year I'm like, okay, well, here's the guys I have. So we're in this offense. So in 2 different years, I'm teaching 2 different offenses, and probably my players suffered because, well, we did this last year, now we're doing this year, and we're trying to change. I mean, not only on the skill development side, but you're asking your players to learn a whole new system every single year, which is really, really difficult to do. So I do think it's important to really have a strong philosophy in the system and making guys fit that as best as you can. You're going to have outliers, but I do think changing systems every year or every couple of years is hard on kids, especially because they're learning it, at the freshman and JV level. Then they come to varsity, like, well, why aren't we running? We did the last 2 years at the freshman and JV level. So it's hard. High school consistency is key. If you can be consistent at the high school level, like, you win games just because you're consistent. So I think that's a very valid point you bring up.
So you talked about a little bit earlier in the question, and John, I think, what did Coach Winter say there, our episode that we're going to come out here this week? He said he had like a 6'6", 6'8", 6'10" kid.
Yeah,
at one point.
Team.
So that, at the same team. So he was lucky enough to have that. But I want to talk about, like, you got a post player, but he's not super mobile. But you're still running 5 out. So what are the things that you're doing with that player? Maybe he's a tall guy, can work down in the paint. That's his skill set. How are you incorporating that guy into a 5 out?
Yep. So one, if he's not very mobile and he's a big dude, I'm going to save him some time and energy by not running to the rim. save his energy and gas and knees, all that good stuff. But if he's that big and immobile, there's other ways, to utilize him. Tons of drag screens, ball screens, off-ball screens. Utilizing him where he can go hit guys. Use his big body to our advantage. Just get him, and then skill development wise, get him comfortable with handling the basketball, making decisions with handoffs. A great example would be, Loyola Marymount's big man last year. Not a great athlete, right? Not easy to go beat anybody off the dribble, but he was very, very effective in that 5-out offense last year. He was a great decision maker, great screener, and a smart kid. So that's one thing I would use him for, is just getting comfortable with handoff situations and then pick and roll stuff. But then also, like, there's lots of ways, even though we're 5 out, to get those guys post touches, right? We can set rip screens, we can go wedge action. There's different ways to get him a post look. But what's nice is, instead of him just working his triangle and just banging down there and trying to fight the front and the seal and all of the different stuff, right? The paint's still open, which allows us to still be in our attack mentality and hunting the paint. At the same time, if we want him to get a look, we can go set him a screen to go down there and get a post look. If he doesn't like it, we can throw him in the dunker or bring him back out. But he's not sitting there just clogging up the paint the whole entire time, because that's his quote unquote his game. He's a big and mobile guy. So it's just a great way to utilize him, away from that. And then something that we do to sell that type of player in their role is letting him know, we call him our trigger man. You trigger our offense. You're the reason we get scoring opportunities. You are so important. So without you doing your job, we will never score the basketball. So it gives them a sense of pride and ownership. Like, yeah, the offense revolves around me, even though I may not be getting a bunch of post touches, but I'm getting guys open. I'm setting screens. I'm diving to the basket. I'm causing double teams. So it's just a great way to kind of get him involved and feel confident that he's making a huge impact within our offense, even though he's not down the block working his triangle and just fighting dudes for all game down there.
So I kind of want to go now into, let's go into a game. And what are a couple of things that you see pretty consistently that teams will go against you and do? And then what are some things that you will kind of do to counter or adjust during the game? Maybe 1 or 2 of the most common ones.
Sure. So we've been pretty successful with drag screens. Our kids do a great job of setting them like way high and wide. And so you'll see first half, we just crush dudes up there, and then they start sagging off, picking us up a little bit lower. They won't pick us up to the 3-point line. So when that happens, we get into a lot more of our delay action where we actually play through our big, because we won't set that screen at 3-point line. It's just one of our rules. So if he's down there, we're not going to go set it. We'll just play through our big, and we have different stuff out of that we'll run. Another thing that we'll see teams do, we'll just try and pack the paint, because we're always trying to just get hard, get deep paint touches. So when that starts happening, we'll do a lot of slot cutting or 45 cutting. We'll try and space the floor, get some empty side stuff to try and spread them out. And then I think what else. I guess it'd be how teams try to take away maybe our dribble handoffs or pick and roll stuff. And then we just kind of have our, if a team's hedging, we're doing this. If they're trapping, we're doing this. If they're in drop, we're doing this. We just kind of teach our kids those coverages, our coverage counters, I guess, versus what the defense is doing there. So that's the kind of the nice thing is no matter what the defense is doing, we have a counter. We're not going to fight pressure with pressure. So if I'm supposed to go set a pin down and he's fighting me on it, nope, we're just going to go to option B. So we try to do a good job of teaching our kids, all the different options out of everything, is that we're not having to like constantly be bogged down and fighting pressure with pressure, and I'm supposed to do this or that. So whether the defense wants to throw at us, we practice the counter to it.
All right, so you kind of led me right into that again here, the planning and designing of your playbook, right? You talked about those counters. So when you're coming into a season and planning, okay, we have to have this for early season and this, how are you planning to build upon those concepts, right? Because obviously you can't throw them all at once.
Yep.
Maybe you're lucky enough to have an experienced team, but even then you have a summer period, you guys you're mixing in to try to figure it out and designing your playbook to the players you have for that year. Because every year, it's a little bit different. You lost a kid here, you gained a kid here, you gained a skill, you know what I mean? So how do you go through that process?
So the first thing we do is we talk about exactly, like I kind of mentioned it early on, but what's our foundational pieces? So what are our reads off a pin down screen? What are we going to do? So for us, layer one for us, if you come off a pin down screen, you either score it, screen it, or zoom it. So we teach our kids that. So no matter what action we throw at them, I'm coming off a screen and I catch the basketball, I know either score it, screen it, or zoom it. Like, that's it. So we know we start teaching those things. If we go to dribble handoffs, we teach, okay, if my man's even with me, I'm back cutting. My man's trailing me, I'm going to curl. My guy, try to take, we just go through all of our different reads through dribble handoffs. We go through our different reads in pick and rolls. It's more of teaching the foundational pieces first. And then we're just working on specific basketball actions. And then once we teach those, then we start deciding, okay, what's our personnel like? Who do we have that we like? What's some different things you think would be successful for us? So then we start going through our different, I've got like a library of like 15 different actions I'd want to run out of our FiveOut. What's going to fit our personnel the best? And then I pick, 5 to 6 that I think that's going to work great for us. And then we just start building in the counters out of those different actions. So we don't run, it looks like you run a lot of different things, but it's not. It's just 4 or 5 consistent core things that we just have counter after counter after counter for.
So I wanted to get into an interesting concept, something that I've also tried to study over the years, which is how much do you connect your inbound plays to your actual offense? I think some coaches will say it's everything, all the concepts are the same. And then some people will say, I got 2 or 3 inbound plays that I really like that don't really connect to my offense overly too much. So kind of what's your philosophy?
I think it's a good combination of both. I mean, we're not going to inbound the ball into like a set 5-out play per se. It's more of, we'll inbound the ball out of an action and then we're playing out of that action. And it's an action we already play out of. So maybe it's a zipper screen into a ball screen. Okay, we're playing out of our ball screen reads there. Or we'll go, inbound it to the big up top. We'll backstream the inbounder and we come off the DHO. So we're playing out of our DHO reads. So it's nothing new for our guys. It's the same actions we run normally out of our half court set. But we just maybe a little different alignment, obviously. But it's still our guys making the exact same reads, the exact same actions, whether it's from the side, underneath, or in the half court set.
All right, so let's go into talking about similarly designing your defense to complement your offense, right? Because I personally feel that's a big thing, right? I mean, if you have one defense and you got guys here and there, it's not going to really flow into what you want to do. So how are you guys designing your defense and positioning your guys? Like you said, even as simple as inbounding, who inbounds the ball to complement what you want to do offensively?
think you're right on the money. I think you have to marry your offense and defense, right? You can't be, we're going to go play 12 seconds or less and then go sit back in a zone where you play defense for 35 seconds. It doesn't flow well. I do think you have to marry your defense and your offense to kind of fit the same sort of style and pace that you're wanting to play on offense, and vice versa with the defense. So for us, we're going to try and get after guys a little bit. We're going to get in the passing lanes. We'll switch when possible, because kind of like how we're positionless on offense, we're kind of positionless on defense. If you want to set a ball screen on us, okay, we'll switch 6-2 to 6-2, like for the same player. So I do think when we're talking to our guys about how positionless we are on offense, it's the same sort of philosophy that we're positionless on defense. So we like to switch. Defense kind of mirrors our, you're interchangeable on offense. Same sort of type of philosophy.
So then now I'm going to call this a Zazdil question, because I know he does enjoy this discussion. That process for filtering information or plays or things you see on social media, or, if we took everything all of us saw in social media, your playbook would be 752,000 plays. So kind of how do you just go through, like, you may see something on a April afternoon and you're like, I want to put that in November, but then you write it down, and then let's be honest, you lose that piece of paper, kind of like you're a paper airplane from your sophomore scout. And so how do you go about filtering in, and sometimes just seeing stuff, saying you like it, but then also saying to yourself, this doesn't fit what we want to do?
Yeah, it's hard, right? We have access to like everything and anything at all times. So it is a tricky situation. What I like to do is I try and stay as organized as I possibly can. So if I'm watching a game or see something on Twitter or whatever, like I have all my libraries all categorized by action. So I'll just, add it to my library. And then a lot of times I'll catch it by film first. So then I go back to draw the play. Before I draw the play, I rewatch it. Is this worth it? Like, is this worth me drawing this up? I really want to use this, or I want to save this? Or is this something that, it might be cool later on down the road? Or I try and kind of filter that way. So what I try to do is, one, when I see it, is it useful to me now? Like, is it something that we run or something we could possibly run? If it's not, but it's just cool, like, I might just like bookmark it or save it, whatever, just to like maybe look back later. But if it's something that's useful to what we kind of do now, I'll take it and then I'll kind of digest it and see how it fits into our stuff. If I can't go put it into our stuff right then and there, then I just kind of try and move on, because there is so much stuff because of that this is out there. You can go sit there on Twitter and just find play after play after play after play, or go watch. I watch game after game after game every day on Synergy, just looking and watching. And so it is hard, because you want to keep everything, and then pretty soon you have, like you said, you have 8,000 plays and you can only use 40. So it is a tough process. I just try to stay as organized as possible. And if it does not fit me immediately, I kind of push it to the side, because it must not be that important, even though it was pretty cool.
All right, so let's remove your team aspect and now go to your content and your brand aspect. I guess, what have you just found when you put stuff out that is, I guess, that's popular with people right now? What obviously FiveOut is, because Milwaukee was doing it. There's a lot of teams doing it, but when you put your content out and you're doing those things, what are some of the things you found that people are really looking at right now?
Well, I post mostly FiveOut stuff, so guys, seem to like that. What I found is people enjoy the plays, but they enjoy hearing the breakdown or explanation a little bit more. So like, I have some YouTube videos, some other stuff out there that I post, but like the most highest viewed ones are the ones where like I spend 5 to 10 minutes just kind of going through, here's what they're running and why, and here's how it works, and here's the counters to it. So I do think that kind of stuff's important. So when I find a clip where it's a kind of the based formation out of something that we all are trying to implement within our offenses, I always try and snag those. I think those are great coaching moments to share with others. Now, I obviously love sharing a sweet ATO that Utah runs or somebody runs it. That's great, but I do think it's really important to find us those great coachable moment clips that you can really share and break down and share with others.
So we kind of talked a lot about kind of the FiveOut offense and things like that. I wanted to kind of go really into the idea of setting ball screens in a big, and I think a lot of times most coaches run a 5-out offense because we want to have spacing and we want to have the floor open and we want to have a lot of movement. And then oftentimes as coaches, then we say, well, let's run a lot of ball screens. So, but we're gonna talk about all this spacing, but let's have two players as close as humanly possible. And I think that's something I've kind of battled with over the years. Is I think for a lot of kids in youth basketball, they do run a lot of ball screens, so they become very comfortable with it. But then I try not to also become too overly ball heavy, because I do think at some point it starts to clog it up, and then people are defending ball screens differently. And so
Yep.
what would you say, is for you maybe the ideal amount or ideal percent, or however you want to break it down, of ball screen action within your offense? And then maybe outside of ball screens or other kind of screens, what are maybe an essential action? I mean, it could even just be passing and cutting, that's important to you as a 5-out coach.
So a couple different ways we can go with this. So one is we do set a lot of ball screens because we're a big, heavy, drag screen team. So we're trying to set those as often as possible because I think those are very difficult to guard. But if it's not a drag screen, typically that ball screen's happening as a consecutive action. So what I mean by that is I come off a pin down and our reads are, right, score it, screen it, zoom it. So I come off, I can't score it. Well, that means I have to screen it. So if our big went and set a pin down, he's going to turn right around and then go set a ball screen. So now that big had to guard a pin down and a ball screen within 3 seconds. Same guy guarding had to get through a pin down and then get through a ball screen within a matter of seconds. So I think that makes it a little more easier for our guys to create an advantage out of pick and rolls when we layer them as consecutive actions. We also treat all DHOs as a pick and roll. So our big makes the same reads out of a DHO as he does his pick and rolls. So it helps keep the consistency with our bigs, but it gives us a different option other than just say pick and roll. Because we can have a DHO, which is a different look, even though it's the same sort of, in our eyes, same concept. But I do think, other than those pick and roll stuff, I think cutting is very important, and cutting from the opposite 45 is a huge proponent of what you can utilize in the 5-out offense, because that paint is always so far open. And his teams start to help in different things. That 45 cut is really tremendous.
I've just started experimenting with the weak side 45 cut, so I agree with that. I do one more follow-up, one more part of the 5-out that I was interested to hear from you. Was there any concept that you started with in the 5-out offense and you're like, I really like this concept, and now after doing it for the years you've done it, you're like, you know what, I don't really like that concept in the 5-out offense anymore?
It's a good question. I would say I used to really like what we would call swing action. So we get a full reversal, top, middle, the other top. Then we go into some like double drag or some double staggers, some single aways, different kind of stuff like that. I don't know. I loved it at the beginning, but then I didn't feel like we really utilized it well enough or did a good job teaching it. So then I kind of got out of it. I like more of the quicker action stuff versus the long weight stuff. So that'd be one. I'd say where we just call swing. We just get a full reversal and then wait for like a multiple layered action to happen. It was just kind of killed our flow. So I loved it, like looking at it, watching it, but when it came to us applying it, it just didn't fit or what. But that was one thing that I kind of pulled back on and looked to add some more quicker action.
All right, so we want to head to our last 2 segments. The first one's called 30-second timeout. It's your platform for anything you want. Your content, your brand, your program, something important to you, anything you want our listeners to hear. And we're not going to put you on the timer here. So
Sure.
your so-called air quotes 30 seconds to talk about something of your choice.
I do think it's very important for us as coaches to read and read non-basketball stuff. So in fact, actually today we're going through some, like, it's crazy to think, but Christmas items. But it's my wife, like 2-3 different books I want to read. And they're not X's and O's books or nothing about basketball. It's more of, culture, leadership, finding different ways to just be a better person, right? Because that's our ultimate goal with this thing, is helping our young men and women become better people and better men and women into our society. So I think anything you can do to find time to read and read non-basketball stuff, read leadership books, read mental health books, read anything non-X's and O's related. And I feel like those can make almost a bigger impact in our coaching than all the X's and O's stuff. I mean, they always say it's about the Jimmies and the Joes, not the X's and the O's, but the Jimmies and the Joes don't like you or don't want to listen to you. It doesn't matter what you're going to do. So I just think it's important for us as coaches to really grow as people. And a great way to do that is reading. It's just an awesome tool that I'd never utilized when I was younger. And I wish I'd started reading a long time ago.
I 100% agree with everything you just said, especially about, and I have a follow-up during our quick hitter segment, but I just think it's really important to hit, especially on the mental health piece. So as we get into our last segment, quick hitters, again, this is our segment. We just like to have a little fun with our guests to finish. We'll just go some rapid fire questions. They might be basketball related. They might not be basketball related. So just some fun questions to hit on.
Sure.
All right, so the best post player of all time that would fit into a 5-out offense.
Best post player of all time. Well, I don't know if you would call him a post player or not, but I would love to see Karl Malone run the 5-out offense because he was so, like, him and Stockton would be phenomenal to watch them run. Like, think of, Murray and Jokic. Like, to watch those two dudes do the same type of stuff in 5-out, that'd be really cool to watch, and it would be a lot of fun to watch. So if I'm allowed to pick Karl Malone, I'd love to see the mailman up in there running the 5 spot.
I just liked when he said his ultimate lineup, and he had Sabonis and Jimmy Butler, and I think I would put those in almost any lineup. All right, so we got the best coach currently out there, or one or two of the best coaches out there that you feel like run the 5-out system very well.
So I thought Nate Bjorken in Indiana last year ran the best 5-out I've ever seen. He's a phenomenal X's and O's coach. Obviously it's unfortunately not there anymore, but if you could watch last year's Indiana team, they were phenomenal. Nick Nurse obviously runs a lot of great 5-out stuff. If you're looking collegiately, I'm really excited to watch Oklahoma play this year because what Coach Moser did at Loyola Chicago was awesome, or Loyola Marymount, I apologize, was unbelievable. To see him do that with a different caliber of athlete, I think is going to be a lot of fun to watch. And then Oral Roberts ran like the most true 5-out offense. Like, they pick and pop, they will never dive their big. Like, they're a true 5-out, and they're fun to watch because if you watch Oral Roberts, their 5-out spacing at the college level was unbelievable. So if you're looking how to space your guys without a 3-point line, watch Oral Roberts last year. Their spacing was phenomenal.
And they had some really good guards. They had some really good guards that could get after it. All right, underrated Twitter follow, any aspect, right? Like, that could be basketball, could be outside of basketball. Somebody that's underrated or somebody might not know that you really like.
Basketball wise, I'd say Tucker Thorson basketball. They don't have a huge following, like 1,400 people, but they post awesome content. Like, if you're looking for nuggets and wrinkles and like the hidden gems within what people are doing, like, they do a great job of finding those and sharing that kind of stuff. So Tucker Thorson basketball is a great job. If you're looking for more like non-basketball related stuff, it's not really a follow on Twitter, but a podcast I really like is called Finding Mastery with Michael, Dr. Gervais. He's awesome. So it's all about this. He brings a lot of guests on that like have mastered their craft. And he talks about how do you get to that ability of mastering your craft and the mental preparation, the stuff behind it, getting into flow. And that's a really cool podcast because he brings in the best of the best in every field. And just to hear the mental side of it, it's really cool.
All right, we got some video breakdown. Maybe you saw it on Twitter, maybe you saw it on YouTube, maybe you saw it in Championship Productions, wherever you saw it. Best video breakdown you've learned the most from?
I would say anything that Cody Topper's put out is awesome. Cody's a great teacher of 5-out. That's where I've had some foundational pieces in place, and then I sit there and watch Cody stuff, and just like it made every light bulb just turn on and click. So anything that Cody Topper puts out is phenomenal.
All right, so let's go into the 5-out. What are your top 3 actions? What are you going to?
I love delay. That's one of my favorite actions. I'd say delay, quick actions, and then I'm also a big double drag into away. So you come off a double drag screen, then they go to the double stagger away for the strong side corner. Those would be my 3 favorite.
All right, I wanted to finish with just on something you said because you kind of just hit on in your 30-second timeout. and reading and different things that were important. What is your maybe one book or two books that you really have read about culture or mental health or relating to players that you really enjoyed?
I'm just trying to look around my bookcase right now. I really enjoyed Atomic Habits by James Clear. Not really relationship building, but just as far as you kind of bettering yourself was an awesome one. Another good one. Extreme Ownership's a great one. And then I'm excited to read, that's on my list this year, is Embrace the Suck, which is the Navy SEAL author, his name. But those are all great ones as far as just kind of leadership. Oh, you know what? The best book I read in a long time was The 7 Hard Truths by Cody Royal. Or the 7 Hard Truths, something like that. But he talks about the 7 Hard Truths of being a head coach. And that book, that was phenomenal. I read that book so quick, and it was just everything hit home. It just puts everything into perspective. That's probably the best book I've read in a really long time.
That's funny you say that, Coach, because we asked numerous coaches if they felt like they had imposter syndrome for a while. That was one of our big hitters for a while. So yes, I agree. That was a great book.
Coach Diemer, we really appreciate you jumping on. Before we let you go, tell our listeners where they can follow you, where they can find you, maybe what you got coming up next.
Sure. So my Twitter handle is @Coach Dimes, and then if you want to see us the basketball side of stuff, it's @94 Feet Hoopz with a Z because S was taken. But you can find us on there. Try and share stuff there. I love talking basketball. I love sharing the game. So if you want to reach out, you got questions, please by all means reach out. I'm very accessible. I just love talking hoops. I love just talking basketball. So if you want to reach out to me, feel free. Love to talk basketball and see if I can help in any way. Don't claim to know it all, but I'm happy to try and figure it out together.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the After the Timeout podcast, hosted by Todd Zazadil and Jon Plicki. For more show content and upcoming episodes, follow us on Twitter @AfterTheTimeout or subscribe to our podcast for upcoming episodes. For show inquiries, you can email us at afterthetimeout@gmail.com. You can find all of our previous episodes on Anchor, Spotify, Breaker, Radio Public, Pocket Casts, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts by searching After the Timeout. We appreciate you listening. Tune in next time for more coaching content in-game, out of the game, and anything in between.